people of color in their lives and all the typical celebrities, that all kids follow. But I can bring them down here to witness this for an hour and say, this is the real world, and this is what we all must do together. And even if you just come for an hour, you need to listen to these experiences of other people who don't have the same advantages that you have, and just to kind of digest it, so moving forward that everybody has a different life experience, and in a lot of cases that life experience is not as privileged as ours. And so I in closing, I think it's just, what can I do? What makes the most sense? And then collectively, that becomes a big effort, a big movement.
And
guys,
Eric, before we let you go, a number of people there at DuPont Circle today, they were of all colors, all backgrounds. From some of the people there who aren't black, what were they saying to you about their reasons for being there today, their passion and their efforts to keep this going outside of today?
I think these are all people who have, I won't say all. There are many, many people, white, Caucasian, not people of color, who have fought actively, been activists to try and end racial oppression, injustice, police brutality, all of it. I think there is a much larger group of people who finally said, I must add not just my voice in a text to a friend, not just a message on social media, not just the posting on my Instagram account, hashtag, Blackout Tuesday or whatever it was. I need to get off my couch, and I need to put on my mask, and I need to make a sign, and I need to come be seen, and I need to come be heard, and I need to come stand shoulder to shoulder with these group of brave people who have been doing it, and say, I stand with you. I don't just support you, I stand with you, I stand next to you, I physically am here for you.
Eric Flack there in DuPont Circle, we appreciate your personal perspective and your professional analysis of the scene there as well. We appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Let's check in now with
thanks,
Jennifer
guys.
Blemmer.
Thanks.
She's joining us by phone. She's with DC Young Democrats. Jen, are you there?
Hi, Haley.
I'm not sure. We're still hearing Eric there in DuPont Circle. Jennifer, you there with us? Okay, looks like we may be having a little trouble getting Jennifer there. But while we wait to get her connected on the phone, hey, Jennifer, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. Okay. Hey, Jen, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Jennifer Blemmer with Young Democrats. And Jen, I want to get your assessment of the day. It has been a day that not only is historic, but has been emotional and has really prompted many of us to think about what we're doing, how we're supporting this movement, and what needs to happen once the dust settles. Where do you see us right now?
So I want to point out that we have kind of done this 180 from the beginning of the week until the end. We've seen a lot more organized protests and demonstrations. I know my alma mater, UDC Law, was out there. Other groups were coming together to have protests. And I think we're going to take this energy and continue to move it forward in some concrete steps. I think we're getting people on one accord. We're creating spaces for people to have conversation, so people will understand why there was so much, anger, frustration, desperation at the beginning of the week, and now we're moving that towards something positive.
Hey, and Jen, what would you say to people who may be watching and they just can't take the politics out of this moment? How are you explaining that to people who aren't Democrats?
Well, this is not about partisanship, right? When I wake up in the morning, I don't wake up, I'm a Democrat. I wake up, I'm a person. And so what this is trying to get people to understand at a person-to-person level, all of us are just trying to live the best life possible. And we have a responsibility to each other as human beings to ensure that we are helping other people, that we are not creating obstacles that keep people from living the best life that they can.
Jen, we have seen some pretty sharp criticism of Mayor Bowser, her administration, as well as the city council and MPD about their lack of action when it comes to police reform. As we heard from Black Lives Matter DC, as well as some other groups, that they say it has taken the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis in order for them to see some sort of movement here in DC, considering we've seen our own deaths associated with black men involving MPD. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I do want to say that advocacy should not be performative. I do understand the frustrations. I mean, it's a beautiful mural, but when people are able to kind of, essentially pull up your receipts, a mural is not going to cut it. I can only hope that this now serves as an impetus for some real progressive change and reform between the city council and the mayor's office, where they are going to start to work with different groups who have the input, who have the on-the-ground knowledge of what happens between police and the citizens of the district, and really, again, try to move forward in a way that's not just platitudes or pleasantries, but literally on the paper legislation that's going to make things better.
Yeah, and Jennifer, looking at this scene here, this current movement, we're all listening right now. We're all still learning, no matter what color you are or your background. What have you learned from this current movement, and how might it change your approach moving forward?
I've learned that people are still learning. I've also learned that people are pretending that they're still learning and really know already what police brutality looks like and what police violence looks like. I think what I've learned from this is that social media is such a behemoth that it is going to be integral to any demonstrations that we have for any cause moving forward, and that people are also able to have uncomfortable conversations, whether it be within their family, whether it be at work, whether it be total strangers. So I'm really looking forward to people being able to kind of, get uncomfortable because, racism is uncomfortable, so we can start to tackle the actual problem and come up with a solution.
Jen, we have a large demonstration today, this being day 8 of the demonstrations that we've seen in the city, but there are more planned for tomorrow, and I believe that your group is also going to be integral in trying to coordinate one of those demonstrations tomorrow as well. Yes.
So, and this is being spearheaded by the National Black United Front with Commissioner Salim Adolfo, with the DC Young Dems and other groups. We will be out in front of the African American Civil War Memorial at 5 p.m. And what our focus there is going to be a rally, and it's going to be what do we do after we march. So really this is going to be the start of how do we take this momentum, how do we take this energy and turn it into something that's going to have long-lasting impact.
Jen, last question before we let you go. I'm curious, we have so many different groups that are participating in this movement now. Mm-hmm. Does it make it difficult for there to be deliverables, considering that it doesn't appear to be one united front, but instead a group here, a group there that are working on this collectively?
Yeah, I can understand how that question can come up, and I think that really just depends on what are we calling a deliverable? If the deliverable is we need to start to confront police brutality as not this, one-off thing that happens randomly, but actually a pervasive and consistent problem between D.C. and other countries and the United States, then that's a deliverable. If the deliverable is that we want to be able to make sure that MPD is not allowed to use tear gas on people anymore, that's a deliverable. I know, people say, too many cooks in the kitchen spoils the recipe, but I really do think this is an opportunity to even have all of those groups come behind one unified message, which is that Black Lives Matter.
And on that same note, really quickly, Jennifer, we're looking at a lot of young people at these movements. And what would you say to the folks who are looking at this and how young people are often characterized that, yes, this might be a photo op or an opportunity to just continue with the hashtag or, just get in front of a camera for a minute. What do you say to the people who don't have faith in our young people to keep this going, to keep this momentum going and produce some sort of change?
I would say that throughout history, any significant protest demonstration has started with young people. If it worked then, it's going to work now. So continue having faith. For the older people who don't believe that today's young people can make a change, remember, you were the young people who were trying to make a change in the face of older people telling you that you couldn't.
Jennifer Blummer with DC Young Democrats. Jennifer, thank you so much. We appreciate your insight and your time.
Thank you so much. You all stay safe.
You too. All right, as we continue to look at a number of the protests happening throughout our city today, a lot of people there have been walking through the streets, sitting in parks, having this conversation, people dancing near the U Street corridor, just getting their message across in very different forms right now. And you do have some people who are just sitting there in solitude, just taking it all in.
And there's a lot to take in. I mean, when we think about the video that sparked this movement, that was troubling. It was disturbing. And since then, we've seen some other encounters that police have had with other people. We can tell you about the man out in Buffalo that was pushed down by officers in riot gear. We can tell you that the two men officers that were involved in that have been charged. That's a new development that came out today. But this does require us to think. It does require us to consider what's next. And I think to Jen's point, we have to figure out what those next steps will be and what they will look like moving forward. But an impressive sight, so many people that are out there today.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at this and really trying to take it all in at the same time as we continue to talk about it because, the elephant in the room here, two black men talking about an issue that we know all too well.
All too well.
This just means a lot at this moment, just to see so many people speaking up, not just people who look like us, but as we've been saying before, a number of allies as well. I thought it was interesting what Jennifer mentioned about people who are pretending to learn right now, who obviously knew all along how big of an issue this was. And what I also find poignant is the video that we saw there of George Floyd. You just couldn't deny that. With a lot of other shootings we've seen over the years, people have said, okay, well, maybe he had this, maybe he approached him this way.
There was no question at this point, none at all. We want to let our friends online know that in a minute you will hear some silence as we get ready to broadcast on WUSA 9 on the television. So as you wait for us to begin our broadcast, take in the images that you're seeing right now in Northwest DC.
Okay. Okay. So they're going to cover the live picture at the top of 7, and then I'm going to start talking in the loud side I talk to it.
Are y'all at the news station?
Yeah.
Oh,
Tell
thank you.
them.
Okay. Yes.
What?
The news. We need to know what's happening there.
So you got to catch this. Okay, period.
Yes.
It's DC.
We want to show people movement stuff. We didn't show us together.
Top of the show.
Yeah, Lorenzo and Larry, look, this is one of the most epic scenes that I've seen in this city so far covering this protest. Watching as a large group, hundreds of people march underneath the tunnel, well, inside of the tunnel, underneath the Scott Circle along 16th Street, to the sounds of T.O.B., a go-go band playing their music right now. I heard one person say, is the news out here? We need to catch this. And you can better believe WUSA 9 is right here in the middle of the crowd.
Easy does it, goddamn.
All right, so yeah, you got people out here obviously from protesting again to stop racial injustice and also a call for justice in the death of George Floyd as well. You can hear the crowd and see them. Yes. Yes, so we started right along 14th and U Street in Northwest DC, marched down 16th Street, and we stopped there on some steps at 16th and S Street. Stayed there for a while, band continued to play. We heard some rousing testimony from a mother who says that her son was killed in the hands of police and she's still fighting for justice, that lives right here in DC, calling for body camera footage to be released. And she got a lot of support from the crowd in that case. From there, T.O.B., who you hear now in the background, they switched out. They've gotten on that truck that's now moving further down 16th Street. We're probably at M Street now. And to see people underneath this bridge here and to see this group of people in the tunnel just chanting and calling for Black Lives Matter. You know, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, you guys, is that part of go-go music is this call and response, right? We know that from Chuck Brown. We know that from just the bands that we hear now. In this call and response moment, a moment of protest, we heard people saying Black Lives Matter, no justice, no peace, back and forth as we heard. But then what's interesting, though, is that we had this now with the backdrop of go-go music. How are you all doing today?
Yeah, what's up, man?
Good, good. Tell me, why are you all out here?
Man, you know why I'm out here. I'm fighting for justice and freedom for my people. Nothing more, nothing less. That's it.
Y'all from DC?
Of course.
Yeah. Talk to me about how special is it that during this protest you're hearing the sounds of T.O.B. right now playing in the middle of the streets?
I mean, this is our home. This is what we hear growing up. So it's good to let them know that this is our city. We built this city, like, you know? Yeah.
Talk to me about, is there a special reason, you know, outside of just, everybody seems to have a story, right? A reason why this fight is so important to them. Why is this so important to you?
I mean, I feel like so many things have happened throughout this time, and it's time for them to it's time for us to let them know that this is our city, this is our country, we built this, and we deserve to have equal treatment, you know? Yeah.
You know, when you saw that video, I know a lot of people, the reason why this fight has gotten so much attention, everybody's seen that video of George Floyd.
Yeah.
When you all first saw that video, those 9 minutes that officer had his knee into his neck, what did y'all think about? What went through your mind?
That could have been my father, uncle, cousin, brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was not a fan of that, and that's why we out here right now.
Yeah.
And plus many more.
I mean, he didn't do anything at the end of the day. He really didn't do anything. Even if it was a fraudulent bill or check or whatever it was, it didn't mean that they had to take his life. So, yeah, that's it, really.
Yeah. How long are you all willing to fight, to march for something to change here?
Forever. Honestly, like, this is our generation. Our generation, we're not going like that. I'm sorry, but we're done. Like, it's time for our next generation to be able to live a better life and not have to go through injustices and poor treatment and all that. Yeah.
You know, your sign says something that's so important. I think I was just looking at it just now. It mentions all of these different factions of black people and saying that all black people's lives matter. Why is that so important to you?
I mean, I feel like a lot of us, as all types of these people, we never really got treated equally. Even people in higher jobs, like poor people, it doesn't matter what position we are in the government, in the world, or whatever. We all get treated the same. So I feel like we deserve better treatment, and it's not fair. Yeah.
All right, I appreciate you all talking to me, and continue to be safe out here. Continue your fight. You got it. You guys, so you are hearing, we've been talking to protesters out here all day long, each of them out here for their own reasons, saying that George Floyd could have been dad, brother, nephew. And they want that to stop. They don't want to have to come out here and continue to do the same thing 10 years later, 20 years later. They want some change, and you can hear, even though they're calling for that change now, that couple just now I talked to said that they are willing to do this fight for as long as it takes. I believe this group is now headed to Freedom Plaza or to the White House, but we're heading in that direction now. So we're going to continue to stay here, walk through the streets with them. We've seen people out here passing out water, taking their breaks if they need to. But people are charged, they are angry, they are upset, and this is what you get. People taking to the streets right now, really calling for some change in a meaningful way, and even more special to have the music of DC, go-go music, as the backdrop of this movement here in the nation's capital. Back to you guys.
Well, you know, when you take it all in, Michael, you realize that there are so many different groups that are working on this one cause, right? And they're not necessarily working together, so groups are joining up together, but they all realize that the work that they do individually is really aiding a bigger goal collectively. And, you know, you've been profiling the work of Don't Mute DC, Mochella. We've seen the Freedom Fighters DC out there as well. We know that Black Lives Matter DC is also out there. A number of different groups and organizations that are all leading to this one mission of police reform and equality for African Americans. Michael Quander, thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it. We will check back in with you in a little bit.
Yeah, it's been interesting, Larry, to see these different groups, but as you mentioned, they all have the same message, even though these people come from different backgrounds in different parts of our city as well. All right, let's get now to our Jess Arnold, who is live down near Lafayette Square. Quite a different mood there. What are people telling you, Jess, and what are you seeing?
Yeah, well, actually, just about 10 minutes ago, there was a whole group that came marching down toward the White House, chanting Black Lives Matter. I talked to one mother, here we got a sign here, Black Lives Matter. I talked to one mother when I asked her, you know, why are you out here? Why are you doing this? She just pointed to her two daughters and said, this is why I'm here, and then walked away. So, you know, people are here for their family members, as you've been saying. I'm gonna try and find one as I walk down the street here, one of these people who came out to talk to them about what this means to them. While I do, I can tell you that there is a sign, Black Lives Matter, posted in the middle of the street. A lot of people have been taking pictures in front of, which has been really cool to see, bringing their children, look like babies that they're carrying. I saw this one family that was biking and had Black Lives Matter on it. Let me come over here. Hey guys, how are you? I'm Jess with Channel 9. We're live on digital right now. I'm wondering if I could talk to you about what you're doing out here.
Sure, absolutely.
Go ahead. So tell me, what brought you out here? What's your message?
Well, my message is one that we're all created equal. And it's really for everyone to portray that and really to just embody that. Black Lives Matter, so we need everybody to support that movement because it's really sad of the amount of people that can be named that have just been murdered for no reason, just being innocent people on the street, not really having, alternative motive behind the reason why they died. So it's important for everybody to come out and voice their opinion. I, as a black man, fear my life every day that I walk outside. I travel for a living. I feel safer in other countries than I do here in America, which is really sad.
Wow. Yeah, and so when we're talking about what you want to come out of this, a lot of people have asked for different actions. What do you want to see come out of these protests?
One thing I want to see is I think criminal justice reform is definitely important. We need to change it. We just need to learn how to deal with difficult situations and have open conversation about how to deal with these types of issues here in America, for one. The issue of police brutality needs to definitely change. It's interesting, there was an article that recently came out about New York City and how much they spend in training their police force, but yet the education system has less money than it takes to train a police officer. There's something wrong with that. And we're not teaching them the right ways to actually handle issues. They're doing it whatever they want to do. We need people to actually hold the police accountable for their actions as well. So that's what I hope to get out of this protest.
And so are you in the camp of defunding police? Because I've heard that from a number of people I've spoken with today. But then there are others, like Chief Peter Newsham, who said he is for reallocating that funding to different initiatives. What do you think about any of
So,
that?
my cousin is actually a state police officer
Oh, wow.
in New Jersey.
Okay.
And I just had this conversation with him.
Yeah.
I think the money needs to be redistributed to other means. In terms of defunding the police, there's two sides of that because obviously they are supposed to be here to protect and serve. However, they also have an alternative motive and wrong purpose when they come to rallies and things of this nature. The fact that they can just waste rubber bullets or tear gas shouldn't be allowed. It's not something that they think about. Every time that they spray somebody with tear gas or a rubber bullet, that should be taken out of their paycheck so that they really understand what it means to use this as a weapon. It wasn't meant or intended to be used as a weapon. So therefore, I think I'm kind of conflicted. I mean,
Sure.
I think we definitely should be defunding the police and allocating that money to lower income families and school systems and things of that nature, as well as ensuring that people know how to use the different devices that they're given in the appropriate manner and not just do it the way they want to.
Well, thanks for talking to me today.
No
Stay
problem.
safe out here, okay? Stay
You too.
cool.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you a shot of the crowd here. Turn the camera around for a sec as I send it back to you guys for a moment while you can look at the crowd.
Well, Jess, it's interesting, right? Because you have protesters and activists that are firmly committed to their position that there has to be very clear and aggressive change in order to change the trend. Then you also recognize it from the perspective of government officials, those on city councils, the mayor, Congress, and whomever, that realize that in order for them to actualize said change, they've got to get additional buy-in, they've got to get votes, they've got to get additional support. And so it becomes a bit harder for them to maybe sell that to people that may not see it as they do, right? That it may be a bit more, they might be a bit more conflicted, that it doesn't come across as very clear cut. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but as we have, it are two sides that are committed to their positions on this, and hopefully we can kind of figure out what does the future look like with some reasonable and constructive change.
And that's a good point too, Larry, because people also have to understand the process.
Yeah, it's a
You
process.
can demand something right now, but if a budget was passed 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, it's kind of tough to reconvene and figure out how to put in new policies when you're dealing with like billions of dollars at once. So a lot to figure out right now.
Jess Arnold, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
All right, let's get to Ardelia Gonzalez, who's right around the corner on the newly renamed Black Lives Matter Plaza, 16th Street, in front of the White House. And Delia, something we've noticed, something really obvious here that's standing out is you don't notice a lot of police officers out there today. We know that the Mayor Muriel Bowser, has been going back and forth with the Trump administration to get some of those federal law enforcement officers out of the city, some National Guard folks out of the city. And today, this is what we're looking at. We don't see a lot of those officers going back and forth with some of the protesters there.
Absolutely, Zoe. We were just commenting on that we've been here since 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, have not seen police at all, minus the presence of police and some National Guard members who are blocking the streets. I have seen some flashing lights, and those seem to be the officers escorting or, in fact, trailing behind this go-go movement, the marchers who were talking to our Michael Quandor a short time ago. That's the only police that I've seen so far through this area. But it has been peaceful, and police have stayed out of this area. I did want to talk to these young people. About a block up, you staged a die-in. There were several of you wearing the names of some lives that have been lost. Tell me why you came out and why the die-in you think was a powerful message to send out today.
Well, obviously, what's going on in the world with the police brutality and the racism. So we would just represent everyone that died out of the police hands and violence and racism. And so we're just representing their lives right here. So as you can see, we have their first names right here. And so that was the whole point of the organization that we did.
First names, last names, you had a little something about each person, a little a little bio or
Yeah,
a little
there was-
description about what happened?
There was a little snippet of how the person died or how they were brutalized by the police, basically stating, like in an I statement. And I wanted to be kind of anatomically correct with some of the wounds. So like with Martin, we have his ear bleeding, and then like with he's not here with us anymore, but with
Brianna,
yeah, and Brianna, exactly. We wanted to like depict that we're here for them. Don't forget that.
I know this is theater of sorts, but theater with a powerful message. This is makeup.
Yes.
But Breonna Taylor was indeed gunned down. What was it like? How did it feel to put this on your body and then to lay down for those few moments you did?
I'm sorry.
No, listen, honey, it's emotional for all of us. And because we could all be there. And that's why what you did was so important. We need to hear your voice. What went through your mind when you were laying down?
Just ready for change. That's all.
Tell me, when you see these tears, we wanted a better life for our young people.
Yes. When I see her tears, it just tells me that the brutality needs to stop. It didn't start today. It starts from slavery, or then it was segregation, now it's police brutality. It's like modern day lynching. So our mission today was to show people, all these people that were killed with by police brutality are still alive in our minds, and they're here, they want justice. We want justice for everybody, and we want police brutality to end. We want change. We want change. Change has to happen, and this has to end now.
Do you feel good about what you did and the stand that you took?
I do. Just George's death, it kind of haunts me just hearing him crying for his mother. Because nobody wants to be calling for their parent and they're not there. So I just still have nightmares about that, just him saying mom. So, but I think our message was very impactful today. So I'm glad it touched a lot of people, and I'm glad that we have everybody out here supporting the movement.
I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you did that. And there are power behind those tears. Don't ever be ashamed to cry, because we all need to feel something. We need to feel outraged, we need to feel sad, and then we need to feel angry enough to do something about it.
Yeah.
What's next for you, young lady?
I don't know, that's the boss lady right there, so we'll see what she has in store for us.
What's your name?
Dominique.
Dominique. Thank you so much. Boss lady, what's next after this? It was a powerful movement. You pretty much stopped the crowd.
Oh man.
When you showed up and lined up silently, holding those names and holding your placards. What's next?
Go back to school, make films, and rule the world.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all. A very true, emotional moment, indeed, by these young people who were staging that die-in with makeup on their bodies to reflect some of the gunshots and the wounds of these folks that we have lost. And there you have it. It really hits home for a lot of people and is haunting to this day. But they're using that pain to come out here and protest, and to protest for change. So let's take a look now as Michael Quander was with this group. This is with the Go-Go Band, Black Lives Matter March coming down. This, I gotta tell you, we were standing by for some time as we were trying to work on getting a signal so we can bring you a live shot. As you can imagine, there are hundreds of people here in this area, and the signals can get a little shoddy at some point. But I took that time to reflect and really just soak this all in. I mean, I saw people standing on the light signals, standing on these poles. You hear the chanting, you hear the music. There are Black Lives Matter signs on buildings. And then, of course, this Black Lives Matter sign that D-Dot spray painted, and along with many other artists painted here on Black Lives Matter Plaza rather. It is moving that our city of DC has come together to show the world that there is strength in uniting together and people of all backgrounds coming together under one single purpose. Lorenzo, Larry?
Yeah, Delia, I got to say it was really important for us to have that conversation there with Dominique because, this has the looks of a block party right now. There's a lot of shouting, chanting, dancing, you got the go-go music, but behind all of that, you can see there is a lot of pain. A lot of people are still suffering. They're still remembering some of these harrowing experiences, and I'm just glad you were there to provide her some comfort as well and engage in this very important conversation for our audience live. All right, Delia.
Delia, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You recognize that it's not just George Floyd.
Right.
It's Breonna Taylor.
Right.
It's Ahmaud Arbery. It's Terrence Sterling. It's Philando Castile. The names go on and on. And so when people are out here, they're recognizing that we've seen way too much of this.
Right. And
Let's
it had
bring
almost similar experiences.
Yeah. Let's bring in Michael Quander right now. Michael, you've been traveling along 16th Street with your group that's actually making its way to where Delia is right now. Tell us how things are progressing there.
Larry, I gotta tell you right now, the city is pretty charged. People are walking. We've been walking down 16th Street. We started at 14th and U, but we have made it all the way down here, just steps away from the White House. I'm gonna get Tiffany to kind of show you all right now from a higher angle that literally walking down 16th Street, for those of you all that know the city, a street that leads directly up to the White House. It says something very powerful to have the music of DC blaring right now with protesters marching down the streets with signs, making their voices heard just steps away from the president's window. And I think it sends a clear message that they want something to change, both on the national level, but also here locally. A lot of them are wanting to have equal funding, equal rights when it comes to education, and just so many other areas of life that they are asking for equality. I passed a woman that had a sign that said simply, "We are literally only asking to be treated like humans." And I thought that sign, that she sat there with her fist raised up inside. We've been talking to people as they walk through, and they've been dancing to this music. A lot of people are trying to rush through the crowd right now, trying to get up there to hear some more of what TLB has to offer too. Can I ask you guys, why are you all here?
Because we love our city.
What about you?
I'm just here to support.
Support
Black Lives Matter, because a lot of black people are getting killed out here, and it's for no reason. So it needs to stop. That's all I got to say.
Are you from DC?
I was born in DC, but I was raised in Maryland.
Raised in Maryland, okay.
But I got to go. I gotta catch up.
Okay, y'all go ahead. I know y'all trying to catch up.
I'm from DC, and this is my second day out protesting, and I'm just here because I've been pepper sprayed, and I want to stand for my people. I'm tired of seeing my people die out here.
A lot of times we see these things happening all over the world.
Right.
Is there a problem here in DC that you want to have addressed?
I just want the police brutality to be the police brutality is one of the main things that really needs to be addressed. Not just here, but mainly here because it's predominantly black, but everywhere that's predominantly black.
Yeah. Everybody seems to have a personal story about what makes them keep going. Why did you come out here for a second day in a row? Do you have anything that personally happened to you or people in your life that make you say, you know what, I got to be out here?
When I was in 4th grade, me and my friend, we was little, 4th grade. Me and my friend, I had his hat, and I was running with his hat, and the police, they flashed a light on me, and they said on the intercom, "Get down on the ground." I had to get down, and then my friend came and he was like, "We just playing." He got my hat, and then he was like, "I could have really arrested you for stealing." And I'm like, I'm in 4th grade. There's no reason for me to be stealing. I go to a private school. I got khakis and all that on. There's no reason for me to even steal. So that's what really been. It's like I could have been dead.
And you felt like that was something that was done because you're black,
right? Because he was a white officer, and he see black children running. Come on, man! In the middle of the night, it was 7 o'clock. Come on, coming from school, had a school closed and all that.
Yeah. It's sad to hear something happening when you're so young. How long are you willing to stay in this fight?
I've been staying inspired ever since my aunt told me to be proud to be black. That's how long I've been inspired, my whole life.
Are you going to keep fighting?
Oh, of course. Never going to stop. Every day if I got to.
Appreciate you talking to me. Thank you so much. So you're hearing it, the stories, people feeling that they have discriminated, profiled for being black. This man's story saying that this is something that happened to him when he was 4 years old. And that's how we've been hearing the same stories out here from different people about their interactions with police and themselves feeling racially targeted for those moments. But again, this fight goes so much bigger, right? So it's about now people saying that, making sure that people go from this protest to the polls, right? And go to talk to their politicians and making sure some real change happens. Again, it speaks volumes just to look at this crowd right now, the road to the house, with go-go music playing in the background here in D.C. It is something that I have never seen before. This is something that shows us that this is more than just a movement. It is truly a movement, you guys.
Michael, thank you. You can see the images from Sky 9 kind of showing exactly where you are, Michael, on the ground. And they show you all of the people that are there now. A much bigger crowd than what we saw even an hour ago. An indication of just the momentum, the interest, and the need to be down on Black Lives Matter Plaza.
Yeah, and not to mention, Larry, it's hot.
Yes.
So you have all of these people gathered together. They have been out there for hours. They have been marching for blocks just to make sure there is change. And we got to point out what you're looking at right there on your screen, the White House. A lot of these protesters have been facing the White House to make sure the Trump administration hears their message as well, because the president hasn't directly addressed this issue as of yet. We do know he is in that White House right now as these protesters continue to make their way closer and closer to the White House. That fence, that fortified fence and concrete barrier is still in place surrounding the White House complex. But you better bet with that go-go music blasting pretty loudly, the president likely hears these protesters and their music. Within the last 30 minutes or so, the president has tweeted law and order.
Law and order.
Simply that. It is likely an address to these crowds that continue to gather in D.C. and across the country. Just a sea of people, and it's really remarkable to look at this shot here, Larry, on our 8th day of protesting in this city, and to know that this is the largest crowd yet. So the momentum is certainly there now, and this crowd just wants to make sure it continues.
Right, and the president was asked specifically about what the administration plans on doing in response to these demonstrations, and the president's remark simply was, a good economy is in the best interest of black people and in honor of George Floyd. But when you talk with people, the thousands that are on 16th Street and the thousands of others that are demonstrating throughout the city right now, across the country and the world, you recognize that it's not about money. It's not about a good economy, because what good is a good economy if you don't feel safe in it? If there is a strong likelihood that because of the color of your skin that someone can treat you differently and feel that you have no real recourse in terms of seeking adequate justice. Those are legitimate concerns, and at some point you have to recognize that, you know, our elected officials whom we put in office have to be responsive to this, right? Because if we live in a country that is for all, then it needs to be for all.
And you can't just say the economy, because who is that economy working for? You know, even during this pandemic, we've seen that a lot of black businesses, a lot of black families were really suffering the most in the middle of this. So a lot of people really are extremely vulnerable right now, and this is touching on that point as well.
Let's bring in our very own Tony Perkins. You know him well as our anchor on Get Up DC. Tony, I just happened to be perusing through your Twitter page today and saw that you too took part in the demonstrations walking over the Memorial Bridge. Kind of tell us about what that experience was like for you.
It was really something. Good afternoon, guys. This was the Prince George's County Black Lives Matter march across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. And, you know, I have a 16-year-old son who has been very moved by everything that has gone on during the last week. He really wanted to take part in one of the demonstrations, one of the marches, and so we chose that one. It was quite moving. It was this was a march that was organized primarily by young people, college students at Bowie State University, some other area colleges and universities. It was a well-organized event. At the start of the march at National Harbor, there was a rally. Some of the students spoke. Angela Alsobrooke spoke. Chief Stawinski spoke. And there were police involved in this march. There were some police along the march route, and they were at the beginning of the march and at the end of the march. And I have to say, there was a very good, cooperative, respectful spirit between the marchers and the police. That was quite telling. I do think that Hank Stawinski has been very proactive in Prince George's County, and you sensed that goodwill when he spoke to the crowd at National Harbor. The walk itself was amazing. It was well organized. It was peaceful, as you well know. And I have to say, once we got to the bridge and began crossing the bridge, so there are, it's very hard for me to estimate the number of marchers. I'm going to guess maybe 1,500 or something like that. But I'm sorry, I'm getting a call while I'm talking to you. My apologies about that.
No, you're fine.
But as we walked across the bridge, the drivers on the bridge, the honking, the raised fists, the peace signs, some people had signs in their cars. They were white, they were black, they were Hispanic. It was so touching. I got choked up because as soon as we made that approach and came up on the bridge, we were chanting and that kind of thing. But then once you saw the other people who weren't actually taking part in the march and you got that support from them, it was really, really something. It was a remarkable day.
Yeah, so Tony, as you're walking across that bridge, are you talking? Are you having conversations with people? Did you take anything away from this march across the bridge?
I'll tell you what I took away from this. So it was a Prince George's County organized march. The makeup of the crowd marching was predominantly black, but it was mixed. All kinds of people, Asian people, white people, everybody getting along, everyone with one purpose. The chants were say his name, George Floyd, say her name, Breonna Taylor. What does democracy look like? It looks like this. They were all very uplifting, positive chants. The camaraderie, the purposeful spirit, the seriousness that people had, it was all very, very impressive. Like I said, my son is 16. A couple of his friends who are also 16 years old came with him. I was very glad to experience that with them and for them to feel, some of what I felt in previous years from the Million Man March and what have you. It was unique and it was special.
Tony, I'm curious, as a father, having that experience with your son today, what are you telling him?
Well, like many, I have had to have conversations with my son that some people don't have to have with their children. He's a young African-American man, so we've had the conversation about what happens if you are pulled over by police once he's a student driver now, but in the future, if you're driving, what to do if you're at an event, an outdoor event or something, and you're approached by the police. And he's, a lot of these young people, sometimes we look at what's going on in the world and we feel like, oh my goodness, what's happening? But I tell you, a lot of these young people are on it. They get it. And he has, it's not just me and his mother talking to him. He takes it in. He comes to us. He came to us and wanted to march. So he gets it. He knows what's going on. He knows what this is about. And he knows that we're talking about trying to make the future better.
And Tony, you've covered a number of these protests over the years, stemming from some sort of incident involving police brutality. We've heard from a number of people who say this feels different. Are you in line with those people? Do you feel the same?
I do feel the same. I'll say this. I think it's always tricky trying to predict what the turning points are. I think you have to get some distance before we really see, how history will judge something. What is what are the true turning points in our political lives and all of that. But having said that, I think that what we've seen over the past few years in terms of black people, men and women, predominantly men, being unjustly killed or beaten by rogue, bad apple police officers who don't face any accountability. We've seen enough of that, and this has been growing and growing and growing. When you put on top of that the stresses and strains of the last few years, the adversarial relationship between this particular White House and minorities in this country, that was put on full display for everyone to see in Charlottesville in 2017. We see what the rhetoric has been this past week with George Floyd. So you have that. And then to have a number of instances, bang, 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 Ahmaud Arbery, Amy Cooper in New York. Now, that was a different incident, but it was yet another incident of someone going about their daily life, a man bird watching, and having the cops called on him. And when we know how that can turn out for us. So we have been building to something, and then you see what happened with George Floyd, and that is on video for the world to see, all 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And I think that has resonated with a wide variety of people. That's why this weekend, as you look at the coverage that we are providing on USA 9 and elsewhere, you pick up the newspapers, that's why there are so many people out, and there's so many people, young, old, black, white, straight, gay. People have had enough, and they want this country to live up to its promise and to do better. So I feel like this is a turning point. We'll see, but I feel like this is.
Yeah. All right. Our Tony Perkins, anchor of Get Up DC. We appreciate you. Thank you for giving us the good word today.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Let's check in now with Charlotte McBride joining us. I believe she was at Lafayette Square last time we checked in with her. She might have been on the move a bit as we've seen a number of demonstrators make their way down to that part of town. Charlotte?
Yes, that's right. We did make our move a few blocks down to get out of the crowds for just a little bit to get better cell service. And then, of course, now the crowds have found us. You can see right now a huge crowd here gathering at I Street here and Black Lives Matter Plaza as the music is blaring and all of the people kind of crowding in. So we had to take a few steps back, but everyone really enjoying this moment right now. Smiles on everyone's faces, people really enjoying what they are seeing and what they have come out to see. I just met Sylvester here. You've been here since about 4:30, but you've been marching. Tell me where you marched from to get here.
So we started at Florida and U and kind of worked our way from there. We saw a couple of crowds. They were coming down 17th and then kind of separated, went to the right, and then the rest of them came towards the White House. It's just been great camaraderie and lots of fun, lots of music out here, and people just collaborating with thoughts and emotions, but it's been all positive.
And we hear everyone saying they're out here for change. What do you want to see when all of the protests die down, when all of this is over? What do you want to see?
I think that, the realization is there that talking about equality, and we've been doing it for generations, and so what I would love to see is that the next generation or the generation that's coming doesn't have to have the same conversations with their kids and then their kids having the same conversation. So being able to say that it's enough is what people are looking for today.
Have you been having conversations with the youth and with children about what's going on?
Oh, absolutely. I have an 18-year-old daughter, and nieces and nephews that need to understand exactly what's happening today. And yesterday and how we move forward. But lots of conversations, the dialogue is there and it's not one way. So the communication is getting better, and that's what people want to see.
When you marched down here, you got to this point right here, and now we can see this crowd is just swelling here. Have you ever seen or experienced anything like this before?
So I have not personally. I know that the Million Man March was a big one. Obama's inaugural was another huge one where the streets were full. But to see something like this, to have people stand together, not only today, but for consecutive days, and then not just be a moment, but actually have momentum. And so that's encouraging.
What made you initially wake up today and decide that you were definitely coming down here?
So that's a good question. It wasn't even an idea that I wanted. I hate the heat. It gets hot. I'm sweating. But one thing is that because we've had to have the same conversations generationally, I felt that it was more important for me to get up and be here, not to protest, but to hear stories and to tell stories and to keep things moving forward that way. So that was the main reason why I got up today.
And I think hearing those stories of what's been so important this week, we've talked to a lot of people who have been hearing those stories, and that's, I think, what has been so powerful, because you're hearing people's firsthand experiences out here, and you're seeing the emotion come from them. We've seen a lot of people happy today, but we've seen a lot of tears as well, because this does hit home for a lot of people. And again, this crowd is just continuing to grow out here, and I think it will continue to grow into the evening. No one is leaving anytime soon.
All right, our Charlotte McBride there near Lafayette Square, thank you. And you know what's interesting too, Larry, the conversation we had with Tony a little earlier is people are armed with information this time around. You think about those prior marches, people shared their experiences and what they went through, but they're starting to understand the process. That's what I've noticed, and what it's going to take to bring about change. It doesn't just mean going out and saying, oh, I'm vulnerable, I can't leave my house, I'm scared, but people are saying, okay, this needs to go into effect, this policy isn't fair, why is this organization getting this much money versus that organization?
Right. And that's the question I've asked this question a couple of times today intentionally, when I've specifically asked about the middle ground, right? Because the activists have very clear positions. We know that government is another different monster, right? And that you have to do a little bit more finessing, you have to do a little bit more compromise in order for you to get the things that you need. Because we can have, very steadfast positions, but there's every negotiation where you realize there's got to be a bit of leeway. And giving leeway does not mean you are losing. In fact, you are winning, because you may gain the legislation that you're looking for, you may gain the reform that you're looking for, but you got to provide them with, some ability to move and juggle this thing around so that we can get the type of long-term change that I think people are looking for.
Yeah, it's going to take compromise and a lot of talking.
All right, so with that, let's bring in our very own Michael Quander now, who has been with folks, a part of the Mochella Don't Mute DC group that have been marching along 16th Street. They are now close to Lafayette Square. And Michael, you've been talking with people that say they are committed to this for the long haul. For them, this is a moment that they plan on being invested in this movement for as long as it takes for them to see the type of change that they're looking for.
Yeah, that's right. Look, people are out here, they're in it for the long haul. They are here, they're charged, and it says something that they are now here. We went from 14th and U, now down here, right here where it is now Black Lives Matter Plaza. We've been seeing people over here beating their feet, having a good time. What's up? How you doing? Why you here?
Black Lives Matters, period.
She said Black Lives Matter, period. Okay. But that's the real thing, though. I've seen signs that said that. Again, I told you all, I had a sign out here that said, we're just asking to be treated like humans. No justice, no peace. What does your sign say? Black Lives Matter, we shall overcome. No justice, no peace. Hers. Tell me why you feel this way.
No wrong answers. There's no wrong answers. He's either a rapist or a racist. Either way, he's wrong, and we need to vote him out.
All right, a lot of opinions out here. People feeling strongly about why they want some change to happen. Again, as we look over here at the band, The band is up here playing in the middle of the intersection of 16 and Odd Streets. People are dancing, they are chanting along, a lot of call and response happening here. And what you all have to take from this here is that the sound of DC, music that was originated right here, now playing just steps away from the president's front door as they are calling for some changes, not only to happen nationally, but also that will benefit people who live right here in the city. I see a sign here saying I'm not a threat, another sign saying Black Lives Matter. And I passed you while we walking up here.
What did you say?
I passed you while we walking up here. Have you ever seen anything like this in the city before?
Never. I never thought I would. Never thought I would. Even after the Caps parade, the Nats parade. Hey, this is what happens when injustice happens.
What was it like marching over here with this group to the sound of go-go music?
Crazy. Crazy. It's crazy. No justice, no peace.
Tell me, why are you in this fight?
I'm in this fight because I hate seeing our people get killed and not getting justice for it. I was a criminal justice major in college, and I hated all the atrocities that I learned about. So this is a very important cause to me. And as someone who, as an educator, works with young Black children, this is very important to me. I don't want our children to experience anything that's happening right now when they're adults.
It sounds like you are doing this for the next generation, too.
Yeah, it's not just about us. It's about the generations after us as well.
Yeah. I got to tell you, when a lot of this has been so emotional for a lot of people, how has this been for you emotionally?
Seeing it so much makes you desensitized to it. Learning about it in college makes you desensitized. Unfortunately, it's unsurprising. You would like to think that because there's a video that there will be justice, but we've seen it before where there's a video, they get a slap on the wrist. So fingers crossed that that this can happen. People just need to understand this is not a political issue. It's a human rights issue. We're human beings. This should not be happening. So I'm hoping that's what comes out of this week and in the future, that we can all unite and it will not be violent. The media makes it think, the media has everyone convinced that every time we're doing this, it's violent. I've been out here since Tuesday. I haven't seen any violence. You can see now, nothing is happening. Everyone's here just having a great time. White, Black, Asian, Hispanic, having a great time. And that's how it's been all week. So it's very important to me.
Yeah. Look, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Have a good one. And that's kind of what we've been hearing out here is that they wanted to make sure that the agitators from earlier in the protest period last week, that they are not taking the shine away from the reason that they are out here. This guy saying, we really want to see some change. We are out here having a good time. But guess what, though? They are also sending a message not only to the White House, but think where we are right now. We live in Washington, D.C. This protest is happening in the nation's capital. This is the seat of power for the country. This is where things get done. And I will tell you this crowd knows that. They know that the Capitol building is right down the street. They know the White House is right here. None of this is not being done on purpose. And they really want some changes to happen. And they are telling me right now they're going to stay out here and keep protesting until it does. Back to you guys.
And Michael, a lot of people there have also focused on making sure this remains peaceful. We did have a couple of chaotic nights in the city, but a lot of groups have sort of shifted the narrative. They wanted to make sure, yes, what we're looking at right here remains peaceful. Have you heard a lot of people talking about that at all today, especially as the sun starts to set?
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying that they wanted to make sure that there was no craziness in a sense, and even the term peaceful protest, right? I think it's a thing of, yes, we don't want it to not be violent, they don't want it to be any criminal activity happening, but they want to be far from peaceful. This is about disturbing the peace. They have literally shut down the streets in downtown D.C. for this weekend. This is breaking up people's daily lives, and that's what a protest is supposed to be about, right? It's supposed to be about making noise, making people feel a little uncomfortable, and I think that that's what they have done in the nation's capital. Right here in downtown D.C., on a street where we would typically see cars driving and parked, people walking around going to their different locations here. That's not happening right now. What's happening is that you have a group of people here chanting, and you hear it right here behind me.
All right, Michael, so what's their next move? Are they going to end right here near Black Lives Matter Plaza, or are they going to continue marching throughout the city tonight? Because you guys made quite the trek to get to that point.
Well, let me tell you, that was definitely a walk down here. We had to take a break and sit down for a quick second, too. But they were supposed to be ending at Freedom Plaza. They decided to come here instead. So I don't know if this is going to be now the final stop or if they're going to continue to move to their location where they first started. Got somebody trying to come through the camera right now. All right, you guys. So we're going to have to power down, save some battery for you guys to come back, and we'll go ahead and send it back to you guys.
All right, Michael, thank you so much. We appreciate the insight and coverage. Let's check in now with Jess Arnold. I believe she is also at Lafayette Square as well. So, Jess, what are you seeing where you are?
Yeah, there is quite a crowd. I was trying to push closer toward the front to get a view of that fence area, but I just couldn't get there. It is so packed, you can hardly move, and I certainly wasn't getting signal amongst all those people, so I came out a little bit on the side here to check it out. But we can see that group that Michael was following. Now they're chanting. Earlier, everyone raised their fists all together. I'm going to try to talk to some people who are out here. Hey, how are you guys? Hey, I'm with Channel 9. We're on digital live right now. Could I ask you about what you're doing out here? What's bringing you guys out here?
Show her what's going on,
Yeah, what's it like for you to be out here together?
It's all right, just seeing, I'm from North Carolina, just seeing what's going on and how people come together, it's strong.
Absolutely. Well, stay safe, the two of you, okay?
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, so everyone here so far is just standing with their signs. I've seen families, I've seen couples together, but it really is packed for a few blocks leading back from the White House. Let me give you a view here.
Hey, Jess, I have a question for you.
I'll check that out.
Just like Michael Quander, you've been walking for blocks throughout the city today, as have a lot of those protesters been. How has the mood shifted throughout the city? Because we're noticing, like, on Michael's block, he's sort of, they have the go-go music playing. It's almost like a big dance party, a block party. But where you are, we see some of those people standing around. Are you still here with me? Okay, it looks like we lost our Jess Arnold there. But as you can see from some of these images as well, it really is just a different atmosphere depending on where you are in the city. A little earlier today, we saw people gathered in DuPont Circle. That seemed to be more of the little social circle. People were sharing their harrowing stories, talking about their experiences and what needs to come from this. And the same with a group gathered in Freedom Plaza a little earlier as well. That group was focused on policy and what needs to come next. So it's a different experience depending on where you are in the city.
And I was also struck too by the generations that we saw out there as well, right? We've seen families with relatives, our elders that have, experienced and remember civil rights and segregation that are out there again today. And, they have a very unique perspective because they understand too how these movements have shifted over the years. In talking with them, it's interesting that they don't seem tired of fighting because they understand and recognize the importance of it. Things get a little bit better, but it's like you have to keep fighting time and time and time again. But as we heard from Tony Perkins and some others, this time, this moment feels different compared to what we've seen in the past.
And I'm sure this energizes some of those older folks. Delia was trying to talk with a woman along Black Lives Matter Plaza a little earlier. The woman had no words for Delia, but she's obviously there and she feels passionately about what's taking place right now. But she reminded me of my grandmother because, Larry, growing up, my grandmother didn't talk about, her childhood experiences too much. She kind of left the interpretation of the world up to me. Right. Obviously had the facts and some of the hard lessons, but I just thought, it was so tough for some people to explain what's happening right now. As we've been saying, it's tough to really explain what we're seeing play out right here as well. But I just remember looking at her and just thinking like, I'm sure she has so much just bottled up. She's probably feeling so much that she, you can't really express that quickly and succinctly.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking when we started reporting on the death of George Floyd and we started having the demonstrations here about how families all over have been affected. And, you know, when we started seeing some of those demonstrations turn violent here in the city, you know, I got a call from my own mother and she was concerned and actually is at my apartment right now. And the first thing she did when she walked in the door is she gave me a hug and she started crying. And she said, I'm just happy I get to hold you and see you because I've just been worried, right? And I'm not down on the plaza there. You know, we've been reporting here from the studio, but this has touched people all over. And it's got families thinking about their safety in ways that probably they hadn't had to think about in the past, and it's really just touched people, you know?
Yeah, and that image of George Floyd, I keep going back to that because, you know, we hear from a lot of people who say, and not just people who are black, by the way, but they say that could have been my son, that could have been my grandson, my uncle. And just what also touched a lot of moms is the fact that you have this grown man, a 46-year-old man, just crying out for his mom in those last few moments of his life. I'm just looking at that, you know, how can you not be touched to do something to make some sort of change? That's obviously driving a lot of people here. I should note, not just George Floyd, but experiences over the centuries.
Absolutely. Our coverage will continue on our mobile app and our website. This has been a spectacular day. We thank you for joining us. Lorenzo Hall will see you tonight on the news at 11. I'll see you Monday at noon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
For continuing coverage, go to WUSA9.com or download our mobile app.